Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Season 3, Episode 8.
Welcome back, friends, for our most soulful episode yet. Today I convinced my guests to leave the forest in Fall Creek and drive to my bachelor pad and kick it for what I'm sure will be a very enjoyable conversation. Welcome the owner of Soul Brewed Coffee, Troy. What's up, Troy?
How's it going?
What's your last name?
Hoyt.
Hoyt. Okay, so how can people follow you and get in contact with you, whether it's personally or business-wise?
Yeah, it's mostly Facebook and Instagram right now. Otherwise, email is soulbrewedcoffeeroasters@gmail.com.
And on Facebook and what, Instagram, it's just Soul Brewed Coffee, correct?
Yeah. It should pop up if you search it.
Cool. Okay, so obviously money's not like the motivating factor for what, like, the types of things that we get into for a career. Like, you're probably just not going to make a lot of money roasting coffee, which is totally fine. But you do have to make money in order to, like, live a sustainable life. If people listen to this episode and they're like, man, Troy is somebody really cool, I want to support him and support his other random habits, how can people purchase your coffee or in general, like, bring revenue stream to you?
Yeah, so it's kind of funneled in to right now with the weird times that we're in. It's kind of funneled into a couple different spots. Just Local is a great place to purchase our coffee. We keep them well stocked, and they're open pretty much all the time, and they're encouraged to wear the mask and stuff. But Just Local, Eau Claire Downtown Farmers Market, that's another good one. And that's also a great way to support a bunch of different local vendors. There's Roadside. They brew the coffee, and they use the cold brew concentrate, and they put it into ice cream and different things like that.
Can you buy it direct, like through your website or anything like that? Or
we actually don't have a website.
Oh, no. Okay, well, so what if people are listening in Minnesota or something? They don't live in Eau Claire.
Yeah, shoot me an email. Shoot me an email. The website is coming. We're working on it as we speak.
Perfect.
So the website is coming. Just shoot me an email, though. In the meantime, soulbrewedcoffeeroasters@gmail.com, and we'll set it up that way.
Or it seems like if I slide in your DM, you respond too, right?
Absolutely, yes.
Perfect. Okay, so when I was a child, I thought coffee was like bitter and gross, and my dad drank it, and I was just like not about it. And at some point, I'm not sure when, it just became like my need, my fix in the morning that I'm just like crazy addicted to. How old were you when you started drinking coffee and thought it wasn't gross?
It was, I would say, because my dad used to drink black coffee, and I remember tasting it, and I did not like it. I was probably 17, 18, I would say. Before I started drinking it regularly, I was probably 21. I'm 28 now. It really hasn't been that long. A lot of people in our industry, they'd be like, oh yeah, 10 years old, we were drinking it, just chugging it back. But I really wasn't that young. I put it off for a long time, and I didn't like it at first. But you drink it, and I don't know, it grows on you, like most things.
Yeah, I think it's like beer that way too, right?
Absolutely.
Like when you're younger, you drink beer, and you're like, oh, this is just to get drunk. And then as you get older, all of a sudden you're drinking it like without any intention of getting drunk. You're like, this just tastes fantastic.
It's the same thing. It traces back to my father.
Okay, so
didn't like his coffee, didn't like his beer at first at all.
So when did the interest then spark to actually brew it yourself?
Yeah, so my wife and I, Elaina, we went backpacking for our 1-year anniversary. We actually got married on the Appalachian Trail as well.
What year was that?
2014 we got married.
Okay.
It was 2006, 15, 16. We went backpacking for 2 months with our dog. We covered loads and loads of miles on the Appalachian Trail and kind of disconnected from everything. And I don't know, in that time we were trying to figure out something we could do together. We were hiking through the state of Virginia, which is where I grew up. And when we got back, we kind of put into motion the idea for Soul Brewed. We stopped at a couple different coffee shops along the way on the trail, and we just liked them, and we both liked coffee. And when we got back, we started putting it into motion, and we both went back to our jobs. At the time, I was working at Starbucks, actually, and Elaina was driving a school bus for student transit. And so we kind of put it into motion, and then started roasting, bought a couple little roasters, started real small. I'm talking like 1.5 pounds at a time. Started renting, we rented a one space, kind of had to move out of that space because of smell and different things. And then we moved to another space and started blowing fuses, and the electricity couldn't handle it. So we went to another space and then got kicked out again because of the smell. Not kicked out, but we had to leave because of complaints, because of the smell, because we weren't properly ventilated and stuff. And then at that point, we were like, we got to figure something else out because we had no place to roast. There was one more stop before where we are now, and that we went pretty far down the road with that one, and then it kind of fell through. And we were really bummed about it. We were like, what are we going to do? I don't know. And so we tried to figure out like a place we could relocate ourselves and the business, because we were living downtown in the 3rd Ward at that point. And we were like, I don't know, let's start looking for property. And we started looking, and then we found this spot out in Fall Creek, 33 acres, a place for us to live. There's a place for us to work. Basically, our roastery is like a big shed that's we converted into a commercial kitchen. So we roast out of there, and we live out there as well.
That sounds kind of perfect after like hiking and being away from people.
Yeah.
You guys just found that you're the perfect couple and you actually want to spend that much time together. So why not do it all the time?
Yeah.
That's cool. What was the first coffee that you roasted that you actually were pretty satisfied with?
Yeah, it would have been from Kickapoo, which is now Wonder State Coffee. It was an Ethiopian. That was when we got back to Wisconsin after backpacking, we had ordered some, and we were just blown away with the complexity of the flavor. And we were like, this is what coffee could be.
So what was the first one that has become like a staple for you guys, right? Because you have a bunch of different roasts, I assume. Mm-hmm. Is there like a main flagship one that you sell all the time? What is that one?
There's no like Soul Brewed roast per se. Our cold brew, I would say, would be the closest thing to that. We try to keep the profile for our cold brew. It changes pretty frequently, but we try to keep the profile for that very similar to what we started with, which was a single origin Ethiopian coffee, actually. We try to keep it very similar to that. It's gone between Ethiopia, Rwanda, Peru, and a blend of Rwanda and Peru. Right now it's just a straight up Rwandan single origin roast, and it's very tasty. I would say that would be as close to a Soul Brewed signature roast that we have.
Production wise, kind of like, what's your volume at this point? How many little bags of coffee do you move every week?
Right now, I don't know. It's a little different right now because there's some places that are shut down. A lot of our main revenue isn't there right now, so it's kind of funneled into a few different places. But I mean, I still roast every day. I roast probably 20 to 25 pounds every day right now, in between cold brew and then bags for wholesale, for retail.
Yeah, I mean, obviously COVID has kind of like affected everybody. Mm-hmm. You know, people have been coming in all the time to my shop and they're like, oh, well, now everyone's out and about skating and stuff. Business must be really great. It's like, well, yeah, there's demand for it. But the problem is we like don't really realize how many little cogs there are to this huge machine that is the economy, right? And when all of a sudden one cog isn't working, that stops production from everywhere else.
Sure does.
You know, like we were talking about off mic. I mean, for myself, I can't get skateboard products because the skateboards, the decks themselves, the wheels, the trucks, the bearings, most of it's not made in America. And even if it is made in America, either the distribution center is still shut down because of quarantine or something else is. So I haven't been able to get products. But like with you, so your wholesalers are the places that you sell it to, either A, aren't open doing business, or B, doing way less business because of COVID. And then there's other things too, like you were saying, where you can't even get like labels and bags and stuff like that. So I think with us, we just have to try to stay positive and figure out what we can spend our time doing. You know, like maybe you can figure out some different roasts or something, play around with different things, so that way when things do get back to normal, you have more things. You know, for myself, I've been spending more time doing like graphics and stuff, trying to stock up on a lot of artwork that I can use for apparel or collaborations at like later points when the time is ready.
Yeah, when the time is right.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a little bit change of subject, but based on the name Soul Brewed, I assume that self-awareness, self-care, like those things are really important to you. That's part of the reason, right, of like living with your wife out in the woods and having this space. What are some things that you do for like self-care?
Yeah, I run a lot. We work outside a lot. We have a lot of acreage to take care of. I mean, the winter is always hard on the woods, broken trees and things like that. So that's always work. Chainsaw, skid steer, four-wheeler, always hauling stuff, moving stuff. Lots of stuff to mow. We're outside all the time. Gardening. I would say running, for me, personally, is the biggest thing. And walking, too.
Yeah, I think anything like getting outside where you're not looking at your phone all the time is like good self-reflection time, good self-care time.
Definitely.
For me, I recently bought a hot tub and then it turned into 90 degrees every day, like since I bought it, you know. But in general, the first few days anyways, I was just laying it with the jets on and music and putting my phone inside. I was like, this is finally time to like turn my brain off from all this like stuff that's constantly happening. And I imagine living out there, like, like endless amounts of time of that, so that's got to put you in a really good, good positive mindset.
Yeah, it's a good way to start the day for sure. You know, take a walk through the woods and just be quiet and listen to stuff. Right now, it's hard to listen to stuff with all the mosquitoes and horseflies, but
sure,
you can't really stop and listen. You have to walk and listen.
Yep. I'm actually going up to my cabin tomorrow. I decided I'm going to take the rest of the week off.
There you go.
Taking my girls up, going to be on the lake and just like kick it with my dad. It's gonna be cool.
Man. Yeah.
So your story just reminds me of that, of several different things. What's that one Reese Witherspoon movie where she hikes the PCT?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking about?
I forget what it's called, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah, or that other movie, Into the Wild.
Into the Wild.
I just like think of like
Harrison Ford, baby.
That's what I'm saying. But I think of you and your wife being like, man, I just want to like go walk around for a while. Like, that's so cool. So I biked across the state last year because I wanted to do something similar, and I knew I couldn't take like a month off because I got kids and like I can't really just like leave very easily. I'm sure I could, but in general, I was like, okay, well, I could do 4 days, no problem. So I biked across the state. It was like 200 miles
in 4 days.
Yeah, and it was pretty sore. Because I didn't train and I had like a dad bike. Definitely not like...
Just energy, baby.
Yeah, exactly.
Just going.
But it was cool because it was like, 10 plus hours a day of just like biking, and I couldn't like run music on my phone because I needed it for the GPS and it was going to die if I ran music. So it was just quiet and it was like a really cool, I don't know, just like reflection type moment. But anyways... So when I hear the story about the Appalachian Trail, it makes me think of like the movie Into the Wild, right? And at least I can't think of that movie, but Reese Witherspoon is smoking hot, and she's in that movie, and she hikes the PCT, and it's super cool and inspiring.
I think it's called just Wild or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. But anyways, what are some people or like where the inspiration come from to want to hike the trail in general? Or, I mean, in general, like living the lifestyle that you do, because especially as time has gone by now, all the country folk are moving in the city. Like it's kind of expected to go into a big city and stuff. And you guys kind of shun that a little bit to like go a different path. Where did you find that inspiration to want to do that?
The inspiration just to get out of town and be able to let your dog out and not have to worry about it chasing gray squirrels down the road and people walking by with dogs and it's barking out the window and things like that, and not seeing your neighbors all the time. And it's just, there's plenty of inspiration which led to us moving out there. Plus we both spent plenty of time outside of town. We did not have that goal for Soul Brewed, though. Like, the goal was to have a shop downtown Eau Claire where we could distribute and have a retail space as well, where people would come and we could talk to people, and it, I don't know, it just, the plan just changed.
Yeah.
It was changing every day. Literally every day we were like, I don't know what to do with this. What are we gonna do? It's changing all the time, and I don't know. So we just let it go, really. Let it go. We stopped taking control of it and trying to force our opinion on what this was gonna be, what Soul Brewed was gonna be. And we just let it go. And it really started to take care of itself. We feel very blessed and fortunate that way. We just kept roasting, and more people kept reaching out to us, and it really just took care of itself, and we just kept going and going and going, and we did not see where we are now. That was not the goal. Like, we had no intention of doing that.
Sure. Well, I think it's really important to look at, like, what is it that your overall goal is, right? It doesn't necessarily, like, what's the overarching goal? Is it really the retail space? No, like, that's part of what you envision, but the overarching goal is finding something that you and your wife can enjoy doing together for a living and having a happy home.
Absolutely.
That's the overarching goal, right? So you can't get hung up on those little things. I mean, even like within my own business, one thing that I tell a lot of people is you have, like, yes, you have to have a strong vision, and you can't like make a whole lot of like sacrifices or you know, you can't give up on a lot of the main things that you want, you know, if you want your business to be what you want it to be. But you can't, like, if there's resistance constantly in things, you have to be willing to change, you know, what your plans are along the road, because some things that you like, well, yeah, and especially if you don't have a whole lot of like knowledge prior, you know, maybe your vision is this, but there's probably a reason why it doesn't exist then, you know, not always, but in general, you have to be willing to like look at yourself and say, okay, well, maybe my initial vision and like plan really wasn't fully accurate. Maybe that doesn't work, but you know, some of the things I'm doing work really, really well.
Yeah.
So let's like go back to the drawing board a little bit here, use what I've learned now, and then develop a new plan. And that's totally okay. Like I said, as long as you're still reaching your overarching goal, whatever that may be, you know, and it's similar for me too. I wanted to provide a community hub for skateboarding. Like, that really was what it was. It's not about the money or where the place is or even the products I really sell. That's kind of irrelevant. You need to sell skateboards. But outside of that, like, you know, I didn't envision selling a lot of longboards initially. Well, like, there's a need for that in this community, and I'm much more knowledgeable about them than anywhere else. They bring in revenue. Like, why shouldn't I then? You know, so it makes sense for me to sell them. Or I didn't know I was going to sell shoes when I started. Or I thought that I was going to sell snowboards, and that certainly didn't work. You know, you have to be willing to like kind of adjust your course a little bit to like whatever is working for you.
Yep.
You guys, though, I mean, you don't have a store downtown, but I know you set up at the farmer's market, right? And pour coffee and stuff, which is one way to get involved in like the community. What other ways have you incorporated your business into like being a part of the community?
Yeah, so the farmer's market is huge. One of the staples of our business. I mean, that's kind of like the social hub of Eau Claire, I think. Everybody is down there. And it's a great way to support local as well. I mean, when we started, it was kind of like get involved in everything you possibly can, because you didn't know who was going to accept your business and who was going to get behind you. And we ended up being just way too busy, and we couldn't handle it because it's just my wife and I. So we mostly right now it's things we can kind of do offhand where we don't need to be on site brewing. Other than the farmer's market, we're down there brewing. Otherwise, we pretty much try to sell it, and you can brew it, and we'll support you 100%. But it turned out to just be way too much work for the two of us.
Yeah, I had Darton Weaver on the show earlier on in this season. He's a videographer, I guess, would be like the main thing. He does a lot of things for that matter. But I was asking him because I'm like, man, I mean, you like your bread and butter is like sports stuff. That's like what he films basically. For the most part, it seems like is like basketball and different things. But I've also seen him like doing lingerie model things and stuff too. And I asked him about it, and he's like, well, here, this is the truth, right? If you don't have the experience in that yet, why wouldn't you take it? You know, because you don't know. Maybe you're gonna really love whatever that is. Maybe you'll make some really cool connection. But once you've done it once, now you've done it. Now you can know that like, no, that's not the right avenue for me. You know what I mean? But if you never try it, then you don't know. And at the beginning of your business, right? Like I get hit up constantly, all the time for events like, hey, you should set up a booth at this event. You should set up a booth at this event. Yeah. And like, it's not gonna generate much of a revenue stream. So realistically, like I gotta make money and I gotta like manage my time. I can't really be at every little thing. I would really like to, but I can't. Yeah. But once you go to a couple, you know, then you wisen up a little bit of like, okay, is it really important for me to be at this thing or not? And then you can kind of make a better judgment. Because obviously, like, we all want to be at everything that everybody else that's cool, you know, is doing. It's just not really that possible, you know. But I do think that, and I do them all the time, even the show alone is one big collaboration. But I really love collaborating with people. I just go into the conversation with them from the get-go. Like any business owner, anything, I go into it from the get-go saying, look, I really would love to do something with you, but we got to find something that is mutually beneficial for both of us, where we're both marketing each other effectively. It's not costing anyone more or less money. If you have an opportunity that you think makes a lot of sense, then bring it up. Don't bring forth everything to me. But if you think of something that it's like, oh, Chris and Passion, this would be a good fit, then hit me up. I'll do the same. You just gotta be like a little bit more wizened up to it. Yes. Which sometimes it's hard to get creative and like figure out what that thing is, but you don't have to force it, right? Like you'll still be here 2 years from now, most likely. I'll still be here. Like if all of a sudden we can't think of a really cool way to collaborate until then, but then you're sitting there drinking a coffee going, oh my God, we need to do this. Like, perfect. Let's do it then.
When we first started, that was a very real thing. Is like we felt like we needed to take on everything just to stay relevant. Take on everything, but then we saw the support behind what we were doing. It was like, maybe we don't need to take on everything. We can afford to be choosy, a little picky about things we support and people we support. And we just, I don't know.
Well, it's about networking too. You know, I bring it up to people pretty often where people will say, oh, you know a lot of people in Eau Claire. And I'm like, well, mostly because I'm a townie. I've been here forever, so you end up meeting everybody. You know, but in general, like I network well because I don't bring up opportunities that aren't mutually beneficial. I don't just bring up every little thing that I got going on and say, hey, you should piggyback off my thing. Just wait until you find the right thing. You know what I mean? You'll think of plenty of things. I'll think of plenty of things. If it's not mutually beneficial, then it's not worth supporting, really. You know what I mean? Because then they're asking for something that's just a favor. And it's like, well, I don't really want a bunch of free favors. I'm sure you don't want a bunch of free favors. I just would like to help you when I can. Like bring something to me that makes sense for me to donate or to do whatever. And then yes, I'm absolutely down. Yeah. But please don't hit me up and just say like, hey, I know you're not gonna make any money and it's kind of not related to my business, but do you want to be here for a whole weekend? Like, well, maybe not that one, but hit me up next time when we have something that like really flows with us.
We did a lot of things for free. We started a lot of things for free, and that ended up,
Well, like I said, it's not necessarily that like you lose money or lose face or anything like that. It's just like you got to remember that your time is very valuable.
Time.
Right. And then if you're investing it into these things that aren't really that beneficial to your business, then it's kind of like, well,
if I paid myself by the hour, I'd be broke. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so a lot of people do this. Is a question I've actually been asking more recently now because I just like it. But there are various businesses that have their own like big event in Eau Claire, right? Like obviously like the Eau Claire's Fest or pre-Eau Claire's Fest. There's in general like a lot of different ones that do stuff. Pickle Fest for that matter. If you guys could have your own big event every year in Eau Claire, like your one thing that is like Soul Brewed's thing on July whatever, what would that look like?
Yeah. We've actually surprisingly thought about this quite a bit because coffee is generally a morning thing. We would do the Soul Brewed cereal share. You bring your own cereal. Everybody can come. We'll put out giant tables in the lawn. we'll provide any kind of milk, almond milk, whole milk, whatever, coconut milk. You bring your own cereal, and we'll have music out there as well. But that is a distant dream. But that, to answer your question, would be like the Soul Brewed thing.
Dude, you could do that so easily.
Absolutely.
I rented, this is a long time ago, because I got married in 2011, and now I'm divorced recently. But in 2011, I rented Phoenix Park. It was like $100. Mm-hmm. It was so cheap, which I know it's like, I'm sure it's more now. But in general, like, you probably could rent it on like a random weekday. You know what I mean? Just pick whatever the date is, and then like you'd only be in it a few $100 at most. Invite everybody out. I bet if you like reached out to all the other little shop owners and just said, hey, like come out, have a little booth, or give something away, and like come eat cereal. That sounds like something really awesome.
The Soul Brewed cereal share.
That's so sick.
That's always been a dream of ours since we started. It's like you bring the cereal, we'll provide all the milk and everything, and maybe bring your own bowl or something. But
that sounds way too cool. Okay, so you're talking about collaborating, obviously. I just did one with Scotty Benz and his clothing company, People Suck, which is kind of funny because, like, my show is very positive. It's, talking about how awesome people are. But anyways, we did a skateboard deck that will have come out way before this episode at this point and sold out. But I love working with other people. Obviously, like with this show of just like sitting down with you, we're like kind of working together already. But I really enjoy just working with other people and doing different things. Maybe because like just doing skateboarding for such a long time is awesome, but like everything gets a little stale over time. And now I'm kind of like, okay, I want to be at my shop 3 days a week, not 5. And like do some other things. Who are some other people that you've worked with in the past so far? And is there anybody that you want to work with at some point coming up?
Yeah, we've worked with, basically everybody in town in one way or another. There's a couple, Eau Claire's Fest would be awesome if it ever happens again, whatever. We work with Blue Ox. We've done that. If it happens in August, when it happens in August, this will be our 5th year doing that. We work backstage. We do it for free. We provide coffee for artists and staff. So we've done that for quite a while now. People I'd want to work with. Passion.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
We really do need to figure out like some kind of cool little thing. Not sure what, but we gotta like put our heads together, think about where our skills and what where our skills lie, and what resources we have available. We need to do something.
Yeah,
really
no
awesome.
joke though. I mean, you could ask my wife. It's like I've been talking about this podcast since it started. Seriously, like we have got to get on there. Like this is awesome because the whole small business community in Eau Claire, it's one big family, really. All of us have worked together at some point, basically. Yeah, in one way or another.
I was walking around downtown the other day with somebody from out of town, and I was showing her the like Barstow Street, right? Because that's more like my zone of downtown than like Water Street is. Not that those people aren't cool too, but Barstow's like kind of my zone. Well, anyway, so I was showing her all the sculptures and stuff, and I was like, oh yeah, whatever. My buddy Adam owns this Reading store, and my buddy Benny owns this place as well as that place, and my buddy this. And she's like, are you just friends with everyone? And I'm like, well, that's kind of like the cool part about being like a downtown business owner is like we all work on the same events. Every time we have an event, who do you ask? All your neighbors. Well, we're all like neighbors. So we end up just being friends over time, which is really, really tight.
Yeah, everybody... I would agree. Yeah, you get to work with loads of different people because coffee is a hot commodity, as they would say.
Everybody loves it. That's again kind of the cool part of the show. It certainly is not meant to be like Eau Claire people. That's not like the vision of the show, and I know it'll be pigeonholed that way a little bit. I had a lot of interviews lined up to be outside of Eau Claire for this season, and then COVID, came swinging. Eventually, a lot more episodes will come from different areas, but that is kind of the cool part of like this whole little network now that's been like built up through all the alumni of the show. Like there's so many people when you walk downtown that were like, oh yeah, they were on the show, they were on the show, they were on the show, and like eventually I guess I'm gonna have to tell
I saw Miles. I play in the volleyball league at Wagner's, which got recently shut down. Not Wagner's, but the volleyball league.
Right.
I saw him like a day after I listened to that episode. I was like, hey man, checked out that passion episode. He was like, hey, sweet, nice.
Yeah, it's kind of cool because then when you run into him, you're like, I didn't know all these things about you. I feel like me and you just kicked it for an hour.
And then you have that connection just out of nothing, really.
Yeah. So I want to talk about life goals a little bit because, like, it's not just about professional. Like, all the time people ask me, like, I bet you really want to have a bigger shop. I bet you really, do you want to expand or do you want to, like, have more stores? And I'm like, man, like, no. I guess at this stage of my life, I'm, like, always looking at what is the next personal thing that I want to achieve. Because for me, anyways, like, I kind of am in my little zone that I'm, like, cruising along. You know what I mean? Like, I'm at a good pace in my jog and I'm just, like, cooking. It's going the way it needs to go. But life goals, like, I'm always thinking about what's next for me. And the big one, the big thing that's just like stuck in my mind is I want to be on a beach at some point, like really, really bad. So my plan is both my kids will graduate and be out of my house when I'm 45. So I'm at this point trying to set myself up so that way at 45, I can sell everything and I can disappear to an island and just like kick it, do some paintings, or hopefully like I'm in a place where I'm making money remotely where I can try to do something like that. But that's kind of the next goal. I got to make it 15 more years of like hanging around this zone in a good way. But I got to make it 15 more years doing what I'm doing here and set myself up so that way I can disappear into like a whole new stage of life. What's like a big life goal that you have that isn't really related to your business?
Yeah, so the goal is to just use what we're doing, Soul Brewed Coffee Roasters, as an avenue to plug into different areas into Eau Claire and use, if possible, use what we're doing to support different people and businesses, and because it's tough right now, and some people are thriving, some people are struggling, and if we can any way help a business or a person even kind of get moving, because it's easy to kind of stand still right now. If we can help get someone or a business moving.
So here's like something I always think about, right, is when people talk about how do you give back or like how to help people. And I always I think of this example of like opening a door for somebody. Well, if you're walking and you see somebody slightly behind you, you open the door, right? And naturally you would just like wait the 3 seconds for them to come through. Most people would, I think, because that was like a really easy, nice thing to do. Or like say you grow vegetables, right? You're not going to eat all the tomatoes that you grow because they grow a million of them. So what's easy? Well, you just bring them with you, say to the farmer's market or whatever, and just say, here, you can have them for free. Or you give them to your neighbor or whatever. Those are like the easy ways to help people. That's a good way to think about it though, of like, if we all look at what's an easy way for us to help people, like what's a simple way that we can do it, and if everyone does that, we all have different resources, we can probably help each other. And that's what I was talking about with like collaborations and stuff. It's not trying to force anything. It's figuring out like, okay, we have different skill sets and resources. What's like a very smooth, easy way that we can help each other that's not going to put any stress? It's just going to be helpful, you know? And for you guys, maybe you can just like give some free coffee to people or something. Or maybe you can pop up at an event when somebody finally has an event to try to help them with their like grand reopening or whatever. You know, you can look at like what's a way that you can do it that like is really within your capabilities, because it isn't always, you know, like with the riots and everything, I totally get it. You know, but a lot of people have been reaching out to small businesses saying like, hey, we want to see some significant donations from like these people and these people and these people. And it's not about like not agreeing for the cause. And I totally understand that, like, you know, money is power, spend your money and donate it. And I'm not arguing that. However, right now, it's a really hard time to ask small businesses to donate money because none of us have it. Like, we're all in this really difficult time right now. There's a reason that government is bailing out all these people. It's in a difficult spot. That does not mean that I can't help you in some way. We just have to look at other resources that are available to me.
Coffee is currency in a lot of situations.
That's the funny part, right? I was talking about it with Alexander Mann, season 2, about trading services and how awesome that ends up being with like different business owners, because it's like, look, the retail cost of this versus what I actually pay for it and how I can get it. We should figure out some trade here because we can make something really smooth happen.
At the farmers market, we've developed over the years a relationship with a lot of different vendors, and you end up just trading because everybody needs something.
Right.
A lot of people need coffee. I need vegetables or beef or salsa. things like that. It's just like you end up just swapping goods.
Bartering culture is pretty awesome.
Yes, absolutely.
So let's talk future. What's in the works right now? Obviously, again, like this whole COVID thing is really throwing a question mark into the wind of like, no one really knows. But in general, like what has been in the works for you guys? What can we kind of expect to see from you in the coming year, or 2 years, or whatever?
Yeah, nothing huge, I don't think. Like, really, our focus, and I think a lot of people's focus is just getting back to normal. Like, as soon as we possibly can, just getting back to normal and putting everything that's happened behind us. There's really no big events other than potentially Blue Ox Festival in August. Hopefully that goes through, but there's really not a whole lot of big events going on. We just want everything to go back to normal.
Yeah.
Shops to open again, and
I feel the same. I want to get back to my regular routine of just like, before all this happened, I feel like I was in such a like low stress like world that I had slowly built around me, like this little fort that just kept me like in a nice, comfortable space, and then just that storm came through and smashed things to bits.
It's tough. Everything is all stirred up right now. It's tough to figure everything out, and I don't know. Everything is up in the air.
Yeah,
it's up in the air.
Okay, well, you listen to the show, so we're to that point where I always ask people to share an experience that they've had that they're really grateful for, but only happened because they chose to pursue something they were passionate about rather than just like their, regular business and money. What's an experience that you got to have?
Yeah, it's not so much one experience. That would really take some time to figure all that out if I had to choose one experience. Yeah, I talk to my wife about it all the time. It's just, I can't believe that we get to do this every day. And it works, and we get to meet all these people and work in all these different situations. And I don't know, it's just, it's amazing that it worked. That's, I think the biggest thing is when we started is like, I don't know if it'll work. I don't know if it will work. And we didn't really have a set up plan for it or like a long-term goal for it. A lot of businesses put in like a business plan and a huge portfolio and work with the career development center and things like that. And it's like, we didn't do any of that. You just start it and see where it goes. And if it wants to go, just let it go. And that's what we've done, really. And it's been a huge blessing for us, and we're always really stoked to be able to do coffee things outside of our normal life, be able to do coffee things. And it's like, this is great. This is awesome.
I think that's one of the really cool things about small business versus big business is like the motivating factor for small businesses, the vast majority of the time, isn't money. Like that's just a tool that like you need, but that's not the motivating factor behind any decision that you make at all. The motivating factor is living the life that you want, which is the reason that you did it in the first place, right? Is to build not a comfortable as in lazy lifestyle, but a comfortable lifestyle as in something you actually want to be doing. Even if it is like, you're out sweating or whatever, and you're actually working sometimes, it is something that you actually want to be doing. For me, which was kind of like a very, I don't know, unexpected, like, blessing, I guess, that I just, like, figured out through all of it, is how much of a creative outlet, like, my business has been for me. I didn't really think of that as being a motivating factor at all. And now I just love it. Like, I just finished a graphic not that long ago that I made into stickers and is going to be released now on as, like, hoodies and jackets. And I'm only making 4 of them. I'm making like one size run, a small, medium, large, and XL of a jacket and of a hoodie with like one of my dumb little monsters that I like drew on it. And the fact that I can just do that and I make money on it is so cool to me that like there's no limits. I could do whatever I feel
Absolutely.
like.
Yes, I would say that's the most redeeming quality of all of this is I get to mirror our business after ourselves. So if you like look at our Instagram or Facebook or whatever, it's all just like normal stuff. Like this is what I'm listening to, or this is what I'm looking at while I'm driving or things like that. It's rarely has anything to do with coffee.
Well, and how satisfying is it that like being your true self, putting yourself out there as like, this is my business, and just not even thinking about marketing, just like being yourself. How cool is it that so many people want to support that?
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah,
that's
we
so
hear it
rad.
all the time. Like, dude, that bear that walked through your property was huge. I'm like, was it really big? And they're like, yeah, that was huge. Like, because we have, I don't know, game camera videos I post on there and stuff, and it's like coyotes and foxes and fishers and bears, and there's all sorts of stuff that pops up.
So what's the biggest lesson you've learned so far through this whole coffee business? What's kind of the story about how you learned it?
Yeah. I say the biggest lesson is to trust people, to trust potential business partners, but also just normal people, just customers and things like that. That's definitely the biggest thing I've learned, because it's easy not to trust people, especially right now. And it's hard really to trust someone fully and know that they have the best intentions for you and your business. That's the biggest thing, because I feel like I mean, you will get burned, obviously. Trusting people, eventually someone will burn you. I feel like that's all right to happen.
Well, think of it as like investments, right? Like you're not going to make a killing on every single investment. You just want to overall do well. But if you don't take those shots, like it's never going to happen. How I like to, look at it is I like to tell everybody that, for the most part anyways, regardless of like what anybody else did in the past, I'm going to base like my view of somebody on my personal interactions with them. Like I said, there's exceptions to that rule, obviously. But for the most part, why not just give people a chance? It doesn't mean that you have to fully invest and like put everything in their hands. You don't have to give them that many resources. But if you just are willing to like give everybody a chance, you can protect yourself enough that even if it goes, sour, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
But give people a chance. You never know. Like you're not going to have really awesome people walk into your life unless you're open to that happening in the first place.
Definitely. Yes. It happens all the time. And so it's like, if you doubt people constantly or assume the worst about a person, 98 out of 100 times you'll be wrong. But those 2 times that you're right, people will be like, oh, here's a good judge of character. I'm like, not really. It's like you doubt people all the time. Eventually you're going to be right. Sure. Yeah, people burn you all the time. But it's like you gotta trust people, and you gotta assume the best of people.
Absolutely. I mean, in general, like if your assumption is that somebody's a good person, they're going to be able to feel that vibe from you anyways.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And they're much more likely to be that. And again, like if you're not willing to have the door open, no one's going to walk through it.
Yeah.
This world's a hard place to go about, like totally on your own.
Absolutely. I had a bike stolen when we were living down on the 3rd Ward in Eau Claire. I had a bike stolen right out front of our house, and I parked it there every single day. I'd never locked it up, but I parked it there every single day for like 2 years. And then one day it was gone. And people were like, well, why would you leave it out? Of course somebody's going to steal it. Like, I parked it there like 300 times.
Well, that's the cool part though, right? Is like, if anything else, yeah, maybe you'll lock your bike or something in the future, but that means that thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people walked past that bike and didn't think about stealing it. And it
it's just a couple bad people, man.
Yeah, exactly. It just proves that there's so many awesome people. Yeah. Well, let's end the episode. What you have any last words for everybody?
I do. I would say it's difficult right now. Difficult for small businesses, for people, just normal people that aren't running something on their own, working a normal job, dealing with, your everyday people. I would say a word of kindness. I think people aren't being soft enough right now. I think we're being very hard towards each other. You just got to be a little more open, a little more soft, a little more gentle, a little more kind. It's especially interesting to run a business in this time where it's like you don't feel like you can input into normal society, except when we're talking just person to person, because that reflects like, oh, hey, that's the guy that runs Soul Brewed. Like, he said this, cancel it out. So it's tough. You got to be gentle towards each other. A little more nice.
I love that. I think that mental health is something I've talked about quite a few times. I've been going through a really difficult time frame in my life. It means so much to me when I just get a text message from a friend saying like, hey, how you doing, man? Mm-hmm. And I think that is so important. It's so easy. It's a resource that costs us nothing to just wave to people, just to open the door for them. Or in general, when you walk past somebody, you say, hey, when you see a friend, or in general, hey, I hope you have a great day. Hope things have been good for you.
Yeah.
Reach out to each other. Tell people that you love them. Like,
absolutely.
There's nothing negative that will come from that.
Sometimes been bugging me is like the hugging or like handshaking. Like, I don't know if can I shake your hand? Can I give you a hug? It's people used to be able to do that with. You're like, I don't know. I don't know what their thought process is. I don't know what they're feeling about all this.
But that doesn't mean you can't still say, hey man, I appreciate you. Yeah. Right? So I agree. Like, let's just in general spread more positivity to the world, because nothing negative will ever come from that. It's not going to take anything away from you. Just be nice to people.
Absolutely. Yeah, right now it's a lot of negative. But there's also a lot of positive as well.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.